The chamber lay silent, except for the faint hum of the cruiser's core, a steady rhythm that echoed through every alloy panel. A dim glow of pale blue crystals gave shape to the room and caught the trembling form of the princess, who reclined beside the injured human. Her people had never believed a human could protect a royal. Her people had never believed a human could be trusted at all. Yet there she lay, skin bare under a thin thermal sheet borrowed from the medical alcove, her tears slipping quietly onto the shoulder of the unconscious warrior whose reputation alone once sent shivers through alien fleet captains. He had been known as a killer only because he had survived too many battles and had defeated too many threats to his crew. To her, he had become something else. He had become the one life she wished would never fade. He breathed in slow, uneven pulls. Each rise of his chest was a victory. Each exhale was a relief. She pressed her forehead against him, careful not to disturb the moss-like salve that coated the deep wound across his ribs. The healers had said he needed rest. They had said his body required absolute stillness if he wished to live. But her fear carved into her more deeply than any order they gave. Her culture viewed the human form with a sense of reverence and distance, but she held no ceremony in her heart now. She only held the dread that if she moved too far from him, he might drift away forever. Her family had once ruled entire regions of star clusters. They commanded fleets of silver vessels that glided like blades through the void. She had been raised to lead, not to weep. Yet her tears fell silently as she remembered the moment they met. It had been in a broken corridor on a decaying trade outpost. Pirates had breached the walls, and she had been alone with nothing but a ceremonial blade that did little more than glint uselessly. Then the human had come barreling through the smoke, scorched armor clinging to him, eyes sharp. He fought with clean precision, defending her as if she were one of his own people. She had never heard him speak a cruel word. She had never once seen cruelty in his gaze. The galaxy may have called him a killer, but she saw the truth. He slew only what threatened the innocent. He guarded those who stood no chance. She saw a protector carved by battle, yet softened by compassion. The healers had insisted she retreat to her suite. They had insisted she leave him to rest without distraction. But she refused. Instead, she dismissed the guards outside the door and stepped into the chamber alone. She removed her royal layers weighed down by jewels and sigils. She set aside ornaments that told the story of her lineage. What remained was her true form, bare and trembling under the uncertainty of what the next cycle would bring. She laid herself beside him only because she believed her warmth might help regulate his failing body temperature. Her species responded strongly to thermal contact, and though he was human, she hoped it might steady him as well. She pulled the sheet over them both as the cruiser drifted through silent darkness. Her fingers brushed the back of his hand. His palm was calloused from years of hauling supplies and gripping weapons designed for both atmosphere and zero-gravity environments. She remembered watching him seal the breached hangar during the last assault. She remembered his determination, his refusal to retreat. He had shielded her from a blast that had cleaved through metal like old wood. She had stood behind him, powerless, while he forced the enemy back with a fury no royal guard could ever match. She breathed out a shudder. Her tears dampened his skin. "Don't wake him," she whispered in her mind. "Don't make him feel guilt for her fear or her sorrow. Don't let him rise too soon and harm his healing body. Let him sleep. Let him breathe. Let him stay alive." The cruiser moved through a silent stretch of space where communication arrays fell quiet. Only the ship's internal system spoke to itself. The princess lay listening to the gentle pulse of machinery as she replayed the events of the last hours. The Assassin Collective had sent their elite. They moved like shadows through the hallways. They cut down guards with silent blades that left no light. Her mother had ordered her evacuation, but the attackers breached the escape wing before she could flee. Alarms blared. Lights flashed. The air was filled with the metallic tang of sliced conduits. And there stood the human, emerging from smoke, battered yet unshaken. He had charged to her side even as strikes landed on him. He moved with impossible resolve, blocking each attack with his own body, until he led her into the narrow crawl shaft, where the two of them had crawled in near darkness until the danger passed. She remembered his breath faltering. She remembered the moment he collapsed. The wound on his ribs had bled in a slow, steady flow that frightened her beyond measure. She dragged him through the shaft with trembling arms and shouted for healers the moment she reached the med bay. They had taken him from her arms, but she never left the doorway. She watched the healers coat his wound in salve. She listened to their hushed tones, their uncertain whispers. He might not wake, they said. His heart might burn out from strain. Humans were strong, but even they had limits. She refused to accept that. She stayed at his side. And now she lay beside him, beneath the quiet hush of flickering crystal light, hoping her presence would anchor him. She touched his cheek gently. His skin felt cooler than before. She tucked herself closer beneath the sheet, letting her body share its warmth. Her tears eased, but did not stop. She had confessed nothing to him. She had spoken no words of affection. But he must have known. He must have seen the way she followed him through every corridor, the way she sought his company in the mess hall, the way she listened to every story he shared of his distant home. He had laughed once when she tried human food for the first time. He teased her gently when she struggled to pronounce certain human terms. She had treasured those moments. They became her greatest memories. She rested her hand lightly over his heartbeat. It beat slow and heavy, each thump like a faint drum echoing in the distance. She closed her eyes, letting the rhythm guide her. Don't wake him, she thought again. If he woke now, he would try to rise. He would try to stand and reassure her. But she needed him alive more than she needed any words. Her love was silent but firm. It clung to her heart like vines seeking light. She whispered an old prayer meant to protect a soul traveling the edge of life. The words were soft and ancient, passed down from royal ancestors who once wandered barren, moons seeking refuge from endless conflicts. The cruiser drifted near an uncharted nebula. Swirls of faint red and white dust pressed against the windows. The crystals dimmed further as the ship adjusted power. She opened her eyes at the shift in light. For a moment she feared something was wrong, but the human stirred faintly. Not waking, not rising, just a flicker of movement under the haze of recovery. His eyelids twitched. His fingers twitched. His breathing shifted. Relief washed through her like a wave. She pressed her forehead to his shoulder again. She whispered reassurance meant for them both. The nebula cast gentle streaks of color across the chamber. The dust illuminated the haze of steam from the salve on his wound. It turned their quiet silhouettes into soft shapes on the walls. She remembered stories her elders told of beings destined to cross paths despite impossible odds. She wondered if their story had already been written by some unseen force, or if she had simply been fortunate enough to meet him when she did. She felt her heart tighten as memories flooded her. She remembered when she first saw the way he held younger crewmates steady during turbulence. She remembered how he always offered his seat to exhausted engineers. She remembered how he treated every alien with respect, no matter how different their worlds were. That was the moment she realized he was nothing like the warriors her empire described in cold records. He was something new, something hopeful. She lifted his hand to her cheek. Her tears smeared across his knuckles. She smiled weakly, though pain clung to her expression. Her bare form under the sheet did not shame her. Her people saw vulnerability as truth. and in his presence she felt no fear of truth. If this night became her last with him, she would hold nothing back from the silent devotion that filled her heart. She breathed deeply, steadying herself. She knew she could not remain in sorrow forever. He needed strength from her, not tears. She wiped her eyes and began to whisper tales from her youth, stories of her training, stories of great citadels carved into mountains of crystalline stone. She told him tales she had never shared with anyone else. Her voice wavered, but did not break. She spoke in hopes he could hear her in whatever place his mind wandered through. She spoke because silence felt too much like surrender. Time passed in slow drifts. The nebula outside shifted. The cruiser's engines hummed. The crystals flickered as if dozing. She felt her own exhaustion press down. Yet she stayed awake. She traced the curve of his shoulder, the line of his jaw. She memorized every detail, as though the universe might steal him away. If she forgot even one, then came a breath different from the rest. A deeper inhale, a sharper exhale. Her heart hammered with fear. She watched him closely. His brow furrowed. His lips parted. He murmured something inaudible. She held perfectly still, afraid to disturb him. The healers had warned her. If he woke too soon, the pain could surge beyond his limits. His body needed to remain still. She slid her hand to his chest, urging calm through the warmth of her touch.